This time I'd like to call the Public Works and Planning meeting to order. First order of business would be to approve the minutes from the last month's meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We've got quite of a lineup here tonight, but we're going to shuffle it up just a little bit. We're going to hold our presentation back and let our building codes and planning and our road department step in front of them. They may have something else they want to do. At this time, we'll call the highway department to the table.
Mary, wants to go home with you? Okay, you sit here, I'll sit down here with Miss Becky.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. A couple things for your consideration tonight. They were voted on by the road board this morning, approved. And now we're here to get your guys' favor to send them on down the road, so to speak. First one I want to do is a speed limit request that we have for Forest Ridge, I believe. Is that right, Mary?
Yes, Forest Ridge subdivision.
Yeah, Forest Ridge, yes. They wanted to, we had a request and the petition was circulated. They wanted to reduce the speed limit in their entire subdivision to 25 miles an hour from 30. It's 30 about the same as all the county subdivisions. So we sent that request on to the Sheriff's Department. And their recommendation came back that they be granted that request. They also, in the Sheriff's Department's letter, they also said that these requests are becoming more common and maybe we should consider lowering them in subdivisions throughout the county to that 25 miles an hour. We talked about that at the road board this morning and decided to do them on a case-by-case basis and leave everything as is. So all subdivisions will remain at 30 miles an hour, and on a case-by-case basis, we'll consider lowering them if we're requested to do so. Some of those requests might look like, there might be a pool or a trailhead or something like that, or a long, stretch of road that people are using for a bypass to get around traffic or something. So it really does need to be done case by case, in my opinion. So that's where we're going to stand right now on that part of the Sheriff's Department's letter recommendation to us. So speed limit request, Forest Ridge subdivision be lowered to 25 miles an hour. Motion was made, seconded, all ayes at the road board this morning.
Motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
Okay, now we're going on to a budget transfer / budget amendment where we are going to move money from from the highway department in fund balance to some different line items for expenditures that are going to be required for road improvements over and above the daily operations of the Woodruff County Highway Department for the Plainview Road school site. And this is part of an ongoing effort to make the road improvements that are going to be critical to the Plainview school site that was recently purchased, and the intent, my understanding is the intent from the Board of Education is to build a elementary school, and then it will eventually wind up being a 3-school campus, elementary, middle, high. And I think that will be phased in over the next several years. That's my understanding. I won't speak for them, but this is moving money to start that process of those road improvements.
This is Sledge Road and Hooper's Gap. Is this out that way? The one out there?
Epps Mill, Sledge, Plainview,
Okay, Plainview's the one, okay, yeah, got it.
Part of Miller and the intersection of Plainview and Hoover's Gap. First round of improvements that I feel like were critical to getting those children in and out of there.
What's the scope of the $3 million? Like, is there a,
Do you have?
does it,
It touches on a little bit of
encompass-
all of it,
okay.
Mr. Dodd. It's engineering services. We feel like we probably have enough there to probably cover the majority of the engineering services for the roads. There might be some additional money required to do some box bridge stuff. But then we have other contracted services, asphalt, crushed stone, general construction material, pipe, other supplies and material, and then right-of-way procurement.
the right-of-way procurement, is it pinpointed to, you determine some critical intersections or critical shoulder widening, or does it encompass a bigger radius out there?
It's a, well,
I know it's an estimate.
it's not just the intersections. We're going to make improvements to the road even beyond the intersections. For instance, Plainview in its entirety will be improved. It will have larger improvements at the intersections, which will be on Plainview for this example, will be Hoover's Gap, intersection of Sledge, and Epps Mill. So those, some stacking, some storage, some tapers, that kind of thing.
So it's pretty broad.
It's very broad.
Okay.
You won't begin any construction until you get all the right-of-way, is that correct?
No, sir, that is incorrect. We intend to get these right-of-ways will kind of be phased in because it's so broad that we need to kind of focus our effort on one area so that the actual construction can start. Once we get that construction started, the right-of-way process will still be underway, moving on down. And so hopefully, we'd like to start construction as soon as possible, but we can phase it in. We don't have to have the whole thing done before we can start anything.
Cool.
Because it's time crunch. They're talking about fall of 2021 having this elementary school open for business. Was that 22 months from right now?
It takes a year to build an elementary school, so.
Once they start.
Yes.
So, I have to assume that they're going to be on schedule in 2021. Fall 2021 is when they're going to open this thing. So that gives me 22 months to get 8 miles of road work done. That's ambitious.
And challenging.
Very challenging. Because, as you know, we have 970 miles that's our job, is maintain that 970 miles of road we already have. This is over and above, so we'll do what we can. One thing we know for sure is we could not get the plans developed to put out for a public bid and have contractors bid this work and have a shot at having it finished or even completed enough to, open the school in 22 months. Not in this environment. Contractors are busy, and so the highway department's going to make an effort to have this done with, I would like to add, with our own money. So that's noteworthy. Anyway,
It's commendable, though. It's
well,
noteworthy, and
again, it's ambitious. We'll see.
well, I appreciate you being willing to step into that arena we didn't see coming,
I don't know what I was thinking, but thank you.
No, I think it's a good start.
Well, it's not something that the highway department can continue to do. Hopefully, moving forward, we will all have more notice that property is going to be acquired. The timeline, the money's always the big thing, but the timeline between when they purchase the property and when they hope to have a school up and running, we have to have more time to be able to get this thing out to a public bid, to get some contractors involved. Highway department can't continue to do all this work and certainly can't continue to fund it. But this is where we find ourselves, and we're all making our best effort.
Do you know how many parcels was going to be involved in obtaining the right-of-way?
Well, I know when we had our public meeting recently, we sent out an even 100 letters. Now, of those letters, one went to the commissioner of that district, the county commissioner of that district, which is Mr. Jernigan. One went to the road board member that's over that district. And so there was 98 parcels. Of those 98, we're going to acquire right away from approximately 80. 80 approximately that we will have to acquire additional right away from.
Money for that coming out of your budget? For the right of way?
Yes.
There's $500,000 in this amendment.
Which is all, which is all coming from the fund ending balance.
Of the highway department, not public works.
And we're asking for 3 million, and we put 1.3 in this fund balance on July 1st, so.
Right. So,
And you've had civil engineering guidance to talk about the logistics, and so when you bring the 3 million in, you've got your expertise, you've had some outside counsel as well,
oh yeah,
so
yes. And keep in mind that, a budget amendment in our world is, for a fiscal year. This conversation will go on again sometime after June 30th of next year.
that's part of
This is not all the money we're going to need.
That was part of my.
This is our first go-round.
Is it enough for the calendar year 19, 20? Is it
If-
$500,000 to give us an expectation? $500,000 in right-of-way acquisition, for instance, could that actually be sufficient, or would it be more right-of-way in 2020?
We
Kind of
we just
is it?
we
I know you
think
don't
we
know.
think
I'm
this
not
we
trying to box
think
you
we
in.
think this will get us through this coming year, fiscal year. Now, if we, for instance, if this $3 million is not enough, as odd as it sounds, that's a good thing. That means we've got a lot of work done.
Yeah.
So we feel like this will be adequate to get us to the next cycle, next budget cycle. If not, we'll be back having the same conversation.
Do you anticipate the job, again, this is a high-level conversation, being a $8 million job? Are you looking at $1 million a mile, just kind of in your educated,
Well,
like, because we're gonna, if we approve 3 million, it's a lot of course, it's your money. We're
Yeah.
shifting it, but we're trying to be stewards of your budget as well. Would you anticipate another 3 next year?
I certainly will. Yes.
In my mind, if I'm seeing
Yes.
8 miles and 750,000 a mile, if you
Yeah.
double this,
Yeah.
I could see this thing running 8 to 10. And are we prepared to either go to the bond market to support you, or you hit another 3 out of your budget next year? I don't know.
Our intention is to get the money that's required to make the improvements that have been suggested, proposed even, from the highway department fund in balance. Now, and that'll tap us out. After that, we'll have to maintain a certain level of money in that fund ending balance, for unforeseens over and above these school projects. But that will tap us out. But hopefully in that amount of time, somebody will come up with a way to fund some of these road improvements that are going to have to happen as these schools are built.
And you're going to
Or
be,
we'll have to take it to the bond market.
and you're going to be watching this new subcommittee. You're going to be speaking into that. Hopefully that's going to be an avenue for you to brainstorm with us,
Oh, yeah.
right? You
Yeah.
can be part of that.
Oh, yeah. Be part of the conversation.
That's what I know. I know you're not going to be on the committee, but
Right.
But just to Mr. Dodd, this is for road improvements on the roads we already have. But you were talking about, is the 3 million enough? We've still got to maintain our 970 road miles and then do this.
Sure.
Right.
With our 67 employees, and there's me and another secretary, so 65 men working. So if we do spend this $3 million, he's going to be really happy because we've got a lot done. But just know that we've also have other things we have to do.
yeah, you're 900 how many miles of,
970.
your 970 of maintenance is still going to occur
Yes, sir.
to the degree that you can?
Yes, sir.
Right. And that's just with, historically, you know, what the highway department has tried to do in a year's time, as far as resurfacing, maintenance of roads, pipes, that kind of thing. You know, there's always those unforeseen, those things that pop up out there that we had no idea were going to hit us. They're still coming. That's not going to change. So it's a little uncomfortable, but we'll do the best we can with it.
Your board, did y'all vote unanimously on this one?
Yes, sir.
Are there any areas where you're going to have a significant amount of room?
The intersections are the most impacted. And as you can imagine, the closer you get to the school side, the more intense it becomes. We figured some delusion at every intersection, there's still going to be some right turns and some left turns. So the downstream intersection from there will, you know, we're trying to get it adequate, not just for the elementary school, but for years to come.
Okay. Any further questions for Mr. Brooks?
Are you topping this? Are you topping everything with this? Or are you just getting widths and binders, and or are you overlaying your improvements in this fund or this calendar year? Or
Probably not.
okay, all right.
Probably what we'll do, because we have to keep in mind that this whole area is going to become essentially a construction zone because of the new school. So we're going to have all types of delivery trucks that are making deliveries to that school site while this project's underway, while we're doing our work. So my intention is to get all of these roads up to binder level with temporary striping, and then let the construction, the heaviest impact of the construction happen at the schools, and go back and put topping on at that point. That way we can address any failures. I have to live in reality, and the reality is if you do 8 miles of road, you cannot assume that you're going to have 100% success. You're going to have a certain percentage of failure. So those failures can be addressed while it's still in binder. They can be corrected before the final coat of asphalt is laid.
Of course, the other issue is if you build it, they will come.
Correct.
So all the residential development
That will spring up
occur
around the site. Yes, sir.
around the site. So you'll have construction vehicles.
For that as well.
Yes, sir. You do have got a difficult endeavor here.
Got a lot of good help.
Yes, sir. Glad you're willing to take it on.
Any further questions? We'll entertain a motion on this request.
Move to approve.
We have a motion, we need a second. Roll call.
Commissioner Blair?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Mary, and thank you, and Cotton, all of y'all, thank you.
Thank you.
That's a lot
Thank
of
you,
effort.
Mr. Brooks.
Thank you.
Did, which engineering company have you been using?
We are using ELI.
Okay, so
Is
thank
the
you.
short answer to that. A little more information on how that came to pass is, as you know, we were short a public works engineer, and Miss KDP went to another job opportunity, so our county engineering team lost an engineer as well. So Mike Hughes, our county engineer, was actually down 2 engineers because our public works engineer operates out of his office. He works under my direction as well as under Mike's direction. So Mike was down 2 engineers, and we were having a little trouble filling those positions. So the suggestion was made that the county engineering and the highway department retain a consulting engineer so that these submittals that were happening wouldn't stack up quite so high. So that happened all about the same time this happened. So we are using that consulting engineering contract to do this work.
Are you using any attorneys?
We will have to have attorneys involved for the closings on the right-of-way acquisition. And I have talked to our county attorney, Nicholas Christensen, and he said that they are capable of taking on that work. It'll be an hourly thing. We haven't worked out all the details yet, but yeah, there'll be attorneys involved.
So when you get to that little woman with the broom standing out at the edge of the road saying no, you'll be prepared.
Well, first I'm gonna let Cotton talk to her. He's really good. He's really good. He's a really good people person. He's gone. I know. He's a really good people person. And if that doesn't work, then yeah. So yes, there'll be attorneys involved. No question about it. There'll have to be, even if there is no resistance or opposition. There'll still be attorneys involved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
We'll hear from our building codes department next, if you're ready.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Good evening.
How you doing? I will keep mine short. We were up permits this month. We issued a total of 371 permits this month. 95 of those were single-family dwelling as opposed to last month when we issued 56. So we've seen quite the uptick this month, which is pretty typical. The builders and contractors usually try to get their footings in the ground before dried in before winter. For a total revenue of $138,219. We did a total of 1,837 inspections and 10,425 miles driven. We also issued 973 electrical permits last month also.
Carry on.
And development tax, we collected 352,500.
Does anyone have any questions on that part? If not, proceed.
And then zoning enforcement, we did a total of 366 inspections for zoning enforcement in the month of July. August.
Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Bell?
Y'all were busy.
We were busy.
At this time, we'll accept a motion to approve her report.
So moved.
You need a second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll call our planning department next. Like he's very eager.
It'll be kind of tech heavy today. I've got this and that and paper too, so we're all here. Hope everybody's doing well this evening. Have our usual report, our lot inventory. You'll see there's 2 reports on that today. I'm going to concentrate on the one from August. We didn't have the information available for July last month, as you recall, when we went with the August meeting. So we were able to get that data about a week or so ago, so I put that report together and then also had the information for August already, so we have that report, so I'll just go ahead and concentrate on that. We're looking at total available lots. Again, those are on the ground, ready to have permits issued to them right now, 960. Now, over time, you'll hear me talk about, the trend lines and everything. And what I've done is I've actually prepared a chart to kind of show you what that looks like graphically. On your iPads, you'll see there, you got 4 files there. And you've got one called Available Lots through August 2019. And if you hit that, the chart will come up and you'll see what it looks like this. So to kind of give you an idea what it looks like. That'll give you a trend of what the available lots have looked like since January of 2009. That's when we started tracking this to the present, which would be the end of August of this year. You can see in January 09, that year between 09 and 10, that was kind of the highest it was. We're almost at 1,700 lots. And what ended up happening, that's when, of course, the recession lifted and we started absorbing a lot of the lots that were out there. And you saw that line for several years, as you can see, through January 2016, just consistently go down. Then from January of 2016 through the last couple of years, and you've heard me say this a few times, it kind of just fluctuated between 600 and 700 lots. Over the last year or two, since about 2018, mid 2018 or so, it's kind of trended more upward. Now, from July to August of this year, it actually went down 20 lots, and that kind of coincides to what Ms. Bell was talking about. Permits are up, especially this time of year when people are trying to get the footers down there before the cold weather hits. So I kind of figured there'd be a little bit of this in here. We were seeing so many plats and so many things in the system that once things started being recorded, it was only a matter of time before you started seeing fluctuation. At some point, it had to start coming back up. You just can't get that low. We know a lot of developers are screaming for lots now. But that just kind of gives you a little graphical representation of what we're seeing as far as growth is concerned, at least from a single-family standpoint. In the county, again, this is just the unincorporated county area. So I thought you'd be interested in seeing that. I keep up with this every month, and I can bring it quarterly, I can bring it monthly, whatever you guys would like me to do.
Quarterly would probably
I'm happy to
be
do
good.
quarterly, good. If we can
Has the mail
do that.
kiosk played any effect on this chart?
Not so much on this. The mail kiosks has really been more of something we've dealt with on a subdivision by subdivision basis. It's become an issue more on the existing subdivisions that still have sections that are being developed. That's been a challenge for our office, for the developers, for the builders. It's been a challenge for pretty much everybody trying to adjust to what the Postal Service is asking them to do. There was a meeting with the home builders about a week and a half ago or so. They had someone from the post office at that meeting. They asked me to be in attendance as well, just to kind of see to show what the county has been doing to try to respond to that. Thankfully, they weren't mad at me. They were more mad at the person from the post office. But I understand why the post office is doing what they did. And I've told the post office this. I told the people in attendance at that meeting the same thing, that I understand why. I thought the implementation was wrong. I thought that they could have done a lot better job in implementing it than the way they did. So we're adjusting. With the newer subdivisions, it's not as big of an issue because it can be planned in with the development of the overall infrastructure. It's just been more of a challenge to deal with these existing subdivisions. But I don't think that's had an effect on the lots necessarily. That was a long answer to your question.
No problem.
If there's no other questions on the lot inventory, I'll go ahead and jump into the rezonings that we have for you for next week's meeting. We have 3. You'll notice that there were actually 4 on your agenda. I've only included staff reports for 3 of them because one of them was deferred. Item D was actually deferred, and that's on some property on Rucker Road. That kind of gets back to what Mr. Brooks was talking about when you all were having a discussion with him on the roads in the Christiana area. Building school, development will come. That development that was deferred is in that same area, but that'll have to go back to the Planning Commission before it comes to you. But this first one is by landdevelopment.com. It's located along Walnut Grove Road. It's about 48 acres. The development was actually originally approved back in April of 2018. A preliminary plan was considered by the Planning Commission in August of 2018. The plan was deferred to allow the applicant the ability to research the viability of the property. There were some concerns about the soils in that property and how it could sustain the development. After that review, it was determined that a large part of that property was not going to be developable due to those soils. So what they have done is they have redesigned the subdivision. They went from 100 lots down to 37. That was a significant change, more than what I could approve administratively. So we told them they needed to go back through the development rezoning process, in order to amend the plan development. Really, the development in and of itself hasn't changed much, besides the fact that the lots were reduced by about 2/3. Minimum lot size is 7,500 square feet as compared to what they were proposing, 6,600 to 7,800 square foot range. House sizes are the same, 1,400 square feet and up. There's a variety of materials. Most of the questions that were brought up for this subdivision really dealt more with the maintenance of the common area, which there's a significant amount, and the TVA line and power easement that's on that property. Beyond the questions, there wasn't really any other discussion. The Planning Commission did recommend approval by a unanimous vote on that item. The next item was for some property located along Burnt Knob Road. This is by Stuart Conway. It's located on the north side of Burnt Knob Road, adjacent to the Rogerswood Quarry. That's been in operation since the 80s, albeit under different ownership. They're requesting light industrial zoning of the property. The owner actually owns property immediately to the east of the subject property. And they got that rezoned back in 2015, also to light industrial. They did submit a site plan for a mini warehouse facility that was approved by the Planning Commission back in 2016. There's a copy on your iPads as well. That site plan, they never have done anything with it, so it's expired at this point, but they're looking to zone this property as a future phase, a future extension of the mini warehouse whenever they decide to move forward with that. We elaborated on some of the concerns we had regarding the development of the property, namely the amount of material being removed from the site, namely rock. There were some questions from the commission as to why the applicant hadn't developed the existing property yet. He wasn't satisfied with the original plan, was his response, and he was going back to try to kind of revamp that some. After that discussion, again, the Planning Commission did recommend approval by a unanimous vote, again, 9-4 and 0 against. The third item is another
Can I
plan.
ask you a quick
Yes,
question
sir.
on that
Sorry,
one?
go ahead.
And the satellite view, remind me again what's to the left in the 077? Is that, almost looks like a farm.
I think it's just looks like just it could be like an agricultural structure, just looking at it. It doesn't, let's see. I'm not sure exactly what that was in here. To the west, it's single family. It is a single family home to the
Any-
west with some, yes, sir.
Did they appear?
No,
Didn't, okay.
no, but I don't think anybody spoke on it.
Is that parcel that Mr. Blair's talking about, is it zoned heavy industrial?
No, it's on residential
So
minimum.
that
It's
purple color on the next graphic, it would suggest that this one does.
Yeah. Oh, that's the city's future land use plan. I just included it in there as reference
Okay.
because it is referenced on their land use plan.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Anybody else had a question on that? The third rezoning that'll be coming before you next week. Hold on a second, got my sheet catch up here. Here we go. This is another plan development amendment for a property that is located along Shelbyville Pike. This is the Woodruff Cove development. The pattern book for this development was approved back in November of last year. Most of the elements approved in the pattern book, the number of lots, minimum lot size, are not changing with the amendment. The applicant's proposing to remove about 3.5 acres or so from the approved plan development, rezone it back to RM, what it was zoned for originally, and then transfer that property to the adjacent property, which is Crossway Baptist Church. As far as the development itself, they're not changing anything. This is really just, they're giving this land to the church. That is the extent of this particular application. They're not really making any changes to this. Due to that, there was very little discussion on this item, and the Planning Commission did recommend approval by a unanimous vote. I won't go into a whole lot of detail regarding the fourth item. Again, that won't be up for your consideration. I will say, however, that there was one other item that also will not have to come before you, but it was regarding some amendments that were made to the county's subdivision regulations. There is a public hearing involved with that the Planning Commission did have. Subdivision regulations don't have to be approved by the legislative body. They stop and start with the Planning Commission. There were a number of items that, after looking at the regulations, that we thought needed to be tweaked. The most major of those changes, most of these were housekeeping or procedural, what I would consider, but the more substantial ones involve final plat validity. Right now, if a final plat is approved by the Planning Commission, or at least previously, they were valid for 6 months. We thought that was a little short after comparing it with surrounding municipalities and counties, so we upped it to a year. A lot of these just kind of come through after 6 months and they're just reapproved. I mean, nothing is changing with them, so we didn't feel the need to make them go through that step again, so we did change that. We also made some changes allowing us to administratively approve some right-of-way dedications, namely resulting from prescriptive easements and things like that, where if all they're doing is dedicating the right-of-way so they've got 25 feet off center because their deed went to the center of the road, there's really no reason to bring that to the planning commission. Larger dedications, if that were on a route on the major thoroughfare plan or something like that, would still require planning commission, but these little ones like that, we thought staff could handle those, and that speeds up that process a little bit more. We also made some changes as far as procedurally with the software program system that you recall that we're in the process of implementing. We changed a lot of the wording of the submittal requirements to be a little more fluid to allow us to change as we move forward with that. So those changes were unanimously approved after the public hearing on that item. That's really more for your information than anything. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have on my report.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Demasi made the comment about going from 6 months to a year. That was very beneficial. Through the mayor's office, we had a lot of complaints. Doug, as you remember, we had a lot of complaints from developers who, with only 6 months, because there is so much growth going on, they couldn't get the architects and engineers that they were employing because they were so stacked up. By the time they were waiting on them to make their final presentation to the planning commission in 6 months, the clock was running out on them. So going to a year, and Doug did a good job in checking with other counties what they were doing, so it gives them a full year because it was just a time issue because we are in a high growth area. So that was a good move on Mr. Demasi and the planning commission. So I know a lot of developers are saying thank you for that.
Will they write a check?
Well, they do write the check.
They do. They still do that, yeah. And when they pay the development tax.
Any further questions for our planning director? If not, we'll entertain a motion to approve his report.
So I move to approve the report.
We have a motion, we need a second.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
Thank you all.
Thank you. At this time, Mayor, if the people are available, we would like to
Yes, sir.
see our presentation
Yeah,
on
Mr.
bioenergy.
Yeah, Mr. Cozen, if you want to come on up and make your way to the table. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, over the course of the last year, I've tried to make it available to this committee and to the commission. As you know, we started out last year this time. I've been in office about 2 weeks, and we took off and made a trip up to Sevierville and looked at the composting facility. We've tried to bring to the commission every type of way to handle our waste, at least, and it's taken a long period of time. We've looked at gasification, we've looked at plasma gasification. I think next month we have Waste Away from Warren County is coming. We made a trip up there and looked at them. They're coming to make a presentation. So there are not that many options out there, but what you're getting ready to see from Mr. Cozen's is a proprietary steam reforming gasification system that turns waste, municipal solid waste, into syngas, and then they take that syngas and make it into biofuel, jet fuel and diesel, and so I'm gonna turn it over to him. He comes in from California. It's a process that I think we need to be aware of since it's an issue, and maybe this is informative only tonight. So I wish other commissioners could have been here, but half of them took off and went down to our Tennessee County Commissioners Association meeting at Henry Horton because they liked that cherry cobbler or blackberry cobbler. So, all due respect, our guys like it too. So, Mr. Cozen, this is John Cozen. He is the managing director of Fulcrum Energy.
Our tech guy come in and said you could take the mouse.
Okay, so you
and
scoot
click
over
on
here.
the P and it'd be good. Down at the bottom.
Oh, this is me here? All right. Well, thank you very much for having me. I'm delighted to be here, and thank you very much for that kind introduction. Our business, effectively, we take trash, municipal solid waste, and turn that into clean transportation fuels. We didn't do that for the environmental benefits alone. We did it because there's a problem on either side, and if you can solve them both, that makes a really compelling business. We're not the first to do it. I think there's a few things that set us apart that I can go through in the presentation that would be appealing. Let's see if I can manage to do this right. So, as I said, we try to solve a problem on both sides, both the input and the output of our systems. We can talk about what those take, how that takes place. The first thing I think that sets us apart is we do it at scale. We do it at a big scale. The project that we're developing with Republic in Chicago is going to displace 12 million pounds of trash per day. So we're talking about the type of scale that will extend the life of landfills for years, if not decades. We're not taking, as Steve said, a banana peel here and there. We're taking hundreds of transfer trailers and trucks a day and converting that trash into something that's beneficial for society. What we're doing is we're replacing conventional jet fuel with jet fuel that's derived from trash. It sounds like magic, it's really not. It's really kind of basic science that occurs in many oil refineries around the world. The benefits to it, as I was sharing before, if you're an entity that's looking for an environmental solution to transportation fuels, jet fuel is the one that you really can't replace. If you want to go green in your car, you can get an electric car, you can get a biodiesel bus, but you can't really do much when you're carrying 300 people over the Pacific for 14 hours. Sustainable aviation fuels is the only way to go if you're trying to effectively decarbonize your fuel. We could talk about the investors that have done that with us. We try to focus on a de-risk business model. That's the reason, one of the reasons primarily why we pick trash, because it's readily available, it's low cost, and folks will bring it to you because it's waste, right? We want to get it out, we want to dispose of it. We focus in on a heavily de-risked technology and business model. We use technologies that are really off the shelf. We're talking about stuff that maybe not everybody in this room is familiar with, but any oil refiner is going to know exactly what we're doing down to the science, and it's been proven. One of the second things I think that sets us apart is what we've done in terms of de-risking the technology. We've operated the process at a subscale for many months. We've had our first commercial scale project that's about to achieve completion beginning of next year. That's a $350 million biorefinery, displaces 3 million tons of trash per year. And then the third project will be outside of Chicago. That'll be 3 times the size. This would be essentially be the fourth project or somewhere along that down the line. We guarantee our technology. Our technology is all basically, we don't actually develop any of it. It's all just conventional bits and pieces that are in the oil refining sector. We have an EPC contractor that wraps that. We have insurance grade wrap on top of that. And we sell all the output product. It's all, because we're using conventional technologies, all the fuel that we generate is just, it's all ASTM certified. It's the same thing that you would sell to an oil refiner. In fact, in Reno, we are selling an oil refinery, and they're just dropping it in with the rest of the crew that they get from all over the world. So a little bit here about what we do on the trash side. We try to integrate as best as we can with whomever is providing us with trash and with MSW. So at our first commercial scale project in Reno, we take trash from Waste Management, Waste Connections. In Chicago, we're likely to do it with Waste Connections and with Republic. We take in trash. We operate a facility that looks kind of like a recycling facility, if you will. We take just whatever trailers that they have, we run it through conveyor belts, sorter, shredders, and we end up with this, which I can pass around, which effectively is just, it's cardboard, it's paper, it's plastic, it's the dry organics. We sift out the rocks and the metals and the recyclables and the wood and glass and all those sorts of things that don't have any carbon in them that we can use. We send those back to the landfill, and so you divert about 50% of the volume that would otherwise go to a landfill. So you take a landfill and effectively just double the life of it by using our process. So that goes right back in the transfer trailers, the stuff we don't use goes back in the transfer trailers, goes to the landfill. That stuff goes into our process, which again it's a gasification step and then an upgrading step they're both from huge corporations, they're both made all over the world, and they're both fully guaranteed. I'll just skip past this. Talk a little bit about the fuel, but I'm going to skip off this for a second because this is the third thing I think that sets us apart. We've been very successful at bringing on some very large partners, both on the equity and offtake side. Starting initially The one that's not on here, I think it's on a later slide, is Waste Management's an investor of ours.
Who is?
I'm sorry? Oh, Waste Management. Waste Management. We're also partners with Republic and Waste Connections. They give, all three of those give us product. Waste Management's been an equity investor of ours since 2011. Our company's been around since 2007. We then have equity investments from United Airlines, Cathay Pacific, Japan Airlines, Marathon Petroleum, World Fuel. We've got a $70 million grant from the U.S. Department of Defense. And we also have, BP has invested $70 million in the company. And you can get a sense for kind of a little bit of the investment on the right, and then also buying fuel. So we've got really big creditworthy companies that are behind us, have evaluated the business model, evaluated the technologies we're using, and want to be a part of it. This is a little bit about the sort of 3 steps. So we take in trash, we create what I showed you there using the first step. As the mayor said, the second step is was really a gasification step. Steam reformation is kind of a type of gasification. But again, in the sort of, if you've looked at plasma gasification, this is low temperature, low pressure stuff. This is really, it may not be the most efficient in the world, but it's reliable and scalable. And we specifically value those 2 things more than we do incredibly high performance, because we want to create an asset that's going to work for 40 years, be reliable, and work. The back-end system takes the gas and converts that into a long-chain hydrocarbon or a liquid. And that liquid we sell to oil refiners. Eventually, we're going to upgrade that and sell that directly to the airlines themselves. We talked a little bit about our process, but really, and I can leave this slide with you, it's kind of wordsy. We've done everything we can to try to find creditworthy parties, whether it be Republic on the feedstock side, proven technologies, off-takers that are good. All of our contractors are investment-grade EPC contractors. All the technology is effectively guaranteed. This is a little bit about some of the partners that we have here that have contributed equity or long-term partners here with us. As I think I mentioned pretty much everybody. BP just invested another $30 million in the company. There's commercials that are flying. My father-in-law saw these commercials and decided he wanted to give me a call, and I guess is now proud of me for whatever reason that he knows what I do for a living. So if you've seen some of the BP commercials, if you fly in United Airlines and they talk about sustainable aviation biofuels, they talk about how they bought 1 billion gallons of sustainable aviation biofuels. 900 million of them are from us. So that's kind of where we are in the market. And I'm happy to answer any other questions we have here.
What about the Department of Defense logo?
Yeah, so the Department of Defense is, they awarded us with a $70 million grant for the Sierra project, which is the first one, that's the first commercial plant that's under construction outside of Reno. And it wasn't an economic benefit or anything like that. It was a technology grant. They want to understand, develop technologies that can reduce the cost of jet fuel on the front lines. You're trying to get jet fuel or diesel to the front lines of Afghanistan or wherever it might be. It's $10, $11, $12, $15 a gallon. So they have a grant program. They studied our technology for 8 months, sat with us. We have an incredibly onerous reporting system with them, which is good. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying that they are very, very thorough. Once they give you their capital, they want to make sure that what we're doing is exactly what they told us we were going to do, which is develop a way, improve a way to produce jet fuel and other transportation fuels from waste that they might have elsewhere that can help them get fuel to the front lines faster and cheaper. This is a little bit about our growth program. There's a little hole there in the southeast we hope to fill, but our Sierra Biofuels plant will produce 11 million gallons of fuel a year. That's going to start commercial operations in the next 4 months. We then are probably going to be commencing construction on Chicago project the second quarter of next year. That's one with Republic. We then have 2 folks in the UK working with us. Our third domestic project will probably be, third full-scale domestic project will probably be in Houston. That's been progressing fairly rapidly. And then we've got a growth program of other assets we want to build out. This is sort of in the next 4 or 5 years. Everything that we build, we don't sell technology or license it. We build, we develop, own, and operate. So any plants that we have, we're going to put up all the capital for. We're going to pull all the permits. We're going to own it. We're going to operate it. We're not selling these to anybody unless they want to buy the company. These are our assets, and we don't want to depend on anybody else for our capital.
I have a question.
Sure.
The red's under construction, the blue's in advanced development, the black is in development. Do you have a facility operating today anywhere?
We don't. So we had a demonstration project that operated at about 4 tons a day that we ran for 8 months to kind of prove out the technology. We shut that down and decommissioned it. Everything that we have is focused on the Sierra project. They'll basically be assembled in January, and we'll start and ramp up commercial operations. We're unlikely to finance another project until kind of the second quarter next year because we want that one to work. We want to prove that one's going to work. And when it does, then we're going to build Chicago, Houston, here, the UK, everywhere. Sure. I'm going the wrong way. I keep going up instead of down. This is a little bit about Sierra. So it says we're in operations. The feedstock prep facility there is under operations. The actual biorefinery converts it into fuel is not yet under operations. It will be kind of around the end of January. Construction is, I think we've completed about 92% of construction with no cost overruns, which I don't know, nobody's really sure how we got that lucky, but that's where we sit on that. We do expect to be complete at the end of January, and then we'll meet all the performance tests and sort of run into full-scale 3 million pounds a day operations kind of by the beginning of the summer. And there's a little bit of some of the statistics about what we consume and produce. So what I told you before is we take in trash from transfer trailers and make sort of a process feedstock like this and sort out the rocks and everything. That's the numbers you see there. So we take in about 350,000 tons, and we use about half that. The other half goes back to the landfill. So doubles the length of the landfill.
And this is what you plan on the Sierra?
That's the Sierra project, yes. Yeah.
That's what you're planning on it doing?
Correct, yes. And just to give you an idea of scale, so the Sierra project, because it's sort of our first commercial scale and it's easier to raise $350 million than $750 million, that's one train. All of the future projects that we create, and we talked about this in the car, anything we did here would be 3 trains, so you can triple that now. Project in Chicago is 3, so if you multiply 350 times 3, that's the amount of trash that's going to be incoming on an annual or daily basis.
That's what you would have to have.
Yeah. And it can be regional. We can get it from several different. In fact, in Chicago, we're going to be getting it from Republic and from Waste Connections. So, but there's no scale-up risk. So we just think that having 3 trains of our system is just the most economically viable. We could do a 2x. I think there's economies of scale in building a slightly bigger project. You only need 1 plant supervisor. It's easier to get stuff in and out. You can negotiate better deals with vendors. So we don't want to build another 1x. We would build another 2. The target is sort of the 3x scale that we're doing in Chicago.
What type of location do you try to choose your site for? Is it on a railway or a major interstate?
Mostly the interstate. We don't, unless waste is being brought in by rail. But we don't take our fuel, and we certainly don't take this by rail yet. We would. The big rail companies, when you try to work with them, you say, I need 6 or 7 cars. They're like, all right, we'll get to you when we get to you. They want to be filling unit trains, right? And so it's hard to guarantee reliable service with some of the bigger ones, like we've found, maybe because we're too small. So we're going to be trucking everything initially. So right now we're looking for areas that, and maybe I should phrase too, what we try to do, the facility that takes trash into this, we try to site right on the path between the metropolitan areas and the landfill. That way it's easy for Republic to get in and out. They can get their trucks in and out. We can get our trucks in and out. The refinery is more of that's almost like a small-scale oil refinery. So we want to try to site those where it's a brownfield site. You might have access to more infrastructure, certainly gas and power, other industrial gases, those sorts of things. So they're in 2 different locations strategically. One because it's logistically easy. The second because it's from a utilities perspective, it's easier. But right now we aren't really planning on railing much. We might. It's just, I think the conversations we had with Union Pacific at one point were like, well, we'll get to you when we get to you. And we're like, well, we can't really run a business that way. So they're like, until you guys get to a bigger scale and we can bring trains in and out, it just doesn't make sense.
So the actual processing plant that would make the biofuel, what kind of area does that encompass?
We look for we'd like 20 acres.
Good.
We'd like 20 acres.
And then you'd also have a separate facility that would be a transfer station, basically?
No, it would be a miniature. The thing that you're thinking about at the transfer station is the 20-acre facility. It'd
Okay.
be somewhere around here that would be close to the landfill, easy to get trucks in and out of. It looks kind of like a transfer station or a MRF. And that's where we take all the trash, sort it and shred it. We put it on our trucks and transport it to the refinery, which is a bigger scale facility. It's probably more like 50 acres. And that we'd site somewhere else where utilities are a little easier.
Okay.
We could put them both on the same location. It's just usually finding the refinery site is harder than finding the feedstock prep site. Here's a little bit about Sierra. I've talked mostly about this. So we're going to be beginning operations in 2020, and that'll be sort of the full. This is a picture of the site that we have.
Back up one slide, please.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure. And this is a picture of Sierra. The big sort of silver bullet in the middle is the gasifier. It's 125 feet tall, weighs 1 million pounds when it's fully loaded.
Wayne asked about your raw products brought in and turned into a feedstock. And that feedstock goes to this facility?
Correct.
This facility is a 20-acre?
No, this one, you got to remember, so I want to make sure we get our numbers right. And I don't.
John, you told me 50 is what you needed for the 3X.
Yeah, so you got to remember this is a 1X, this is a little bit smaller, but the facility that would like this is 50 acres.
Okay.
50 acres.
And that's the
That's the
refinery
refinery.
end
That's
is
correct.
about 50 for a 1X.
No, 50 for a 3X.
Thank you.
No, sorry, we keep using different.
Sure.
So 2Xs.
And your location that you receive your raw product is what size?
20 acres.
Okay, thank you.
We could do it for less, but the engineers want to make sure there's enough room to park. You raised me a question.
But as far as the,
He answered.
oh, I'm sorry, man.
No.
But the shredding part of it and the separating, is that there or is that at the 20 acre site?
It's up to 20, yeah. Again, we could put them together, it's just finding sites for this is more difficult.
Okay.
So we tend to put that where there's brownfield sites that are old pulp and paper mills, that are old oil refineries of some kind, chemical plants that kind of have that sort of stuff. So we might site that somewhere in the area if we can. We feel pretty good that we can site a feedstock prep facility on 20 acres in and around the area that's convenient to here at the landfill. And again, there's no real, you need a couple megawatts of power and some natural gas if we can get it, but there's not a lot of utilities. We don't store trash there overnight. The tip room floor is completely clean every night. So it really is a sorting and shredding facility. It's not a disposal facility in any way. There's no harmful gases that are there. It's just, I think I've got pictures of it here. I think it's just conveyors. Maybe I didn't. Yeah, it's kind of up here on the right. It's really just conveyors, trommel screens, that sort of stuff that you would see in a conventional MRF.
But it's a 50% solution to our
Correct.
trash issue.
Correct, yeah. So this material represents 50% of what comes in to what would otherwise go to the landfill, let's put it that way. And I think I'm just pretty, I don't need to talk much about this slide too much. We do have some patents on the technology and on the fuel itself. Again, we're an integrator, so we don't really have much, there's no sort of proprietary process that is not really well understood or exists on white papers. These are pretty well understood technologies that we just put together. There's a couple things. Number one, very few people do it on MSW because it's kind of a trickier feedstock. A lot of the projects that are around here, around sort of the country, have been mostly on woody biomass. You generally have to pay to get woody biomass, so we don't like it. And the market's just smaller. I think what we want to try to do is, as I said, turn something that nobody wants into something that everybody wants. I'm happy to answer any questions you have. I think that's all.
So all of the investment is on your part as far as the facility,
Correct. Yeah, we own 100% of Sierra. We own 100% of Chicago. Yeah, we have financed most of the projects through private activity bonds. There is an exemption that you can have. You dispose of solid waste and remove, I can't remember what the percentage of material is, but effectively our projects would qualify for tax-exempt bonds, which plays heavily into the financing of the project. We've been successful at that. With Sierra, we've got $270 million of tax-exempt private activity bonds we raised there. And in Chicago, we've got $500 million. That's actually in Indiana. But all the bonds that, all the debt that we have, whether or not it's arranged to the state as a private activity bond or something else, I mean, there's no obligation on taxpayers to pay that back. All the obligation of the repayment of the bonds is on us.
Where do you store your fuel?
Well, we store it in relatively small quantities on site. Generally, it just goes right, it's going to go right into trucks and go right to the oil refinery. So we don't really store it very often, a day, 2 days, 3 days. That
So
type
if you put one in Tennessee, you would have to truck it to where?
So it's a very good question. So because our fuel effectively is a low carbon fuel, because we're taking landfill waste, you're pulling landfill gases out, we can sell it in California and we don't need the subsidy for the business to work, but we're not going to turn it down. So we sell the fuel in California, which we would truck it or rail it to California. There is legislation that we might be able to sell it more locally, and then the state can claim it there, which we might do. But otherwise, we're prepared to truck it or rail it. I mean, the economic incentives for selling low carbon fuel in California are, I don't personally know if they're a great idea, but they're more than the cost of trucking.
Okay. Any more questions?
What's the disposal cost for a ton of trash?
What's the disposal cost?
For a ton of trash? If you had that facility down the street and we decided to come dump in your facility, what would it cost us per ton to dump it?
We would work directly with the Republic. So you would keep whatever arrangement you have with them. I mean, our business depends on working with those guys.
Free. I like it. It's free.
I encourage you to, so you're sitting next to the right guy.
Yeah.
So you won't take our trash, you'll take it through Republic, correct?
Yeah, I mean, we're a very little fish, right? So if we try to effectively compete with the Republic or Waste Management or Connections, our business wouldn't exist. We've always, despite the fact we're from California, we're not very disruptive people. We want to work with the existing players in the market. We work with existing partners. We don't want to disrupt that flow.
So a single county would not basically generate enough trash for your operation, correct? You need multiple counties.
I mean, it depends on the size, but my guess is, yeah, we're talking, like I said, about 8 to 12 million pounds a day.
How many pounds would generate Mac a year, or tons?
Tons out of Rutherford County
Yeah.
going into Middle Point is a little less than 400,000 from Rutherford. That's not all the tons in the county. You got some going to a competitor on Antioch Pike, and you've got roughly 400,000 coming in from Davison, plus you've got others coming in around. But the government-controlled part of that is less than 90,000 tons. So the rest of that is private industry, bring it in from within the county.
And that's a year?
Yes.
That's a year. How long would that run your operation? 3 hours? 4?
Yeah, we're looking at about 1 million tons a year. So
Okay.
it's a small volume.
Is that a
We'll take
1X
it
or a
off.
2 or a 3? A million
3,
tons is
3, yeah. The 1X about 350.
Oh, yeah, that was okay. 350 to 175.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, if your question is to come up with that 1 million tons a year out of Middle Tennessee, that's not going to be a hard one to answer. You've got landfill space shortfalls coming soon, so that's going to, by the time you get something up and running, there's going to be a whole different dynamic in the waste industry in Middle Tennessee.
Okay. Any more questions?
Thank you, John.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate you coming by.
Yes, sir.
Thanks a lot.
Good presentation.
Thank you.
At this time, we'll call our landfill report. Mr. Nolan. I believe that's all.
I had to pick on Dan on that. I was in Davidson County, was that last week, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
And Nashville Public Works asked the city and the county to come just listen to a presentation. It was a landfill out west Tennessee, right along the Tennessee River, right close to the Tennessee River, that's got 23 million cubic yards of airspace, and they're looking for trash. And the company that we were talking to was, they had a landfill company, they had a barge line company, and they had some elected official in there trying to team this together to put garbage on a barge in the Cumberland River in Nashville and wind up taking it off the barge in Lake County, off the Mississippi River, making a fuel source out of it, and then burying the rest. And my question was, well, what's it going to charge? Cheaper than you're paying now. I said, okay, how much you going to pay? They weren't expecting that, because ours is free. So they kind of quit talking that way, but it wound up being $40 to $45 a ton was what their figure was going to be. Pretty neat operation. I'm not sure it's going to work out real well, but landfill report for us, of course, our landfill is rather slow intentionally. We're only taking brush and tires. We do take in a little bit of brush, and we do take in a little bit of tires. Our brush amount for last month, you see on there, is not a lot. Our revenue generation is way less than what it used to be. Now, I hope you have the next page of the landfill report has the actual days of the month and the amount of trash coming in. You have that?
Yeah.
Okay. We're open the third Saturday of each month, so if you'll look at the third Saturday of each month, we generated $24 and took in 1,540 pounds of brush. We need to revisit being open on Saturdays. Then the next page behind that was the tires. Did y'all have that one as well? It shows how many tires came into the landfill.
Yeah.
Some of that is tires that actually generated within the landfill coming in across the gate, and then some of it's actually tires that's generated at vendors, tire dealers across the county. But that's the amount of tires that we actually handled.
1,095 tires? Is that, okay. $1,088.
And see, we still take a few tires for free. We have some that comes in, they're litter proof, fix them up on the side of the road, those type of things, so we don't pay ourselves for those.
And the previous slide was the brush.
Yes, sir.
But Mike, how much did I write that check or the authorization? We pay, what's that company?
Liberty Tire.
$310,000 we pay to let somebody come pick up our tires. That's what we're paying to a third party for somebody to come and take our tires.
Right. And we pay them $65 a ton.
Is that a year?
Yes, that was last year's number.
Yeah, last year was 310.
About almost a little less than 4,800 tires total.
And around, we pay about $59,000 to take our glass. So we collect all the glass at the convenience centers, and then we pay somebody to haul it off.
And then we were roughly $95,000 for electronics.
The tire revenue here is the dollar a tire or whatever per ton. This is the revenue you collect at the landfill.
Yes, this is the revenue that she actually collected at the scale.
And when we had the $310,000 cost last month,
That was for a year.
surprisingly was informed that you generate enough revenue to pay that from the contribution from the tire dealers.
That is correct.
Does it go to the state and back to you, or from the tire? How much is that revenue?
It's $1 per tire.
How much is the dollars into your budget?
The last year was $330,000.
And you wrote a check for how much?
310.
So it's close.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
We're not losing the 300,000. We're actually close.
Right, right. Well, and to answer both of your questions, in last year's budget, we actually generated more revenue than we spent. It was close.
In
In
on that
tires
line
alone.
item?
On tires alone,
Okay.
right.
About 10,000.
In your own, okay.
And we're one of the very few counties that can say that. And the reason we can say it is our tire dealers work really hard to do the right thing. And as long as they're doing the right thing, sending it to the state, and the state's sending it back to us, it works. And if you get a tire dealer that's a large volume dealer that's not doing it right, it messes it up for all of us. Any other questions on landfill? At some point, and tonight is not that point, this calendar year. May not be that point either. But at some point, we're going to need to have the discussion on our landfill is when are we actually want to close it? Because it costs a lot of money to keep it open, to keep it maintained, for very little stuff coming in. Just some food for thought there. We talked about revenues a little bit last month, so I tried to pull some together. This is fresh off the computer today.
Is it on here?
No, it's not. I got it late this afternoon. From Griff Industries is where we take our cardboard and paper. We delivered 639.7 tons of newspaper, old newspaper, brought $10 a ton. And we delivered 169.79 tons of cardboard. They brought $3,900 a ton. So in total, we took in $3,600 for cardboard and paper last year, or last month.
How much?
$3,614.
Last month.
Last month.
Paper was how much?
$10 a ton.
No, how volume was?
Volume was, I said dollars, tonnage, 63.97 tons. Dollars was 639.
6,639.
63.97.
Thank you. Tons of paper delivered to an end user who paid you $10 a ton.
That's correct.
And it was $3,600.14 last month.
That's 30, yes. So that's for cardboard and paper. Now, cardboard was 169.67 tons at $17.50 a ton. Paper's gone down again this past month. Cardboard stayed the same for the last several. Now, while you're doing that calculation, let me warn you a little bit. Is yes, we generate revenue when we take cardboard and paper at that location. It does not. That revenue generated doesn't even cover the trucking cost to get it there. So, is it profitable? The answer is no. Does it save money? It's a cost avoidance. The recycling, unless you're in a very specific market and got some good things going, is not profitable. And if we'll go into our convenience center report, of course, their stand is busy. We've got more people coming in. We've got more people moving in close. As of last week, we're down 5 drivers, 4 full-time and a part-time. Last month I explained to you that duck on the water with all the feet going real busy. That's what we're going to be doing for a while. But we're going to do the best we can with it. Some of the schools were calling this morning, y'all are off today, when are you going to get us? We're running our yesterday's route today. Well, I'm on today's route, we'll probably be there tomorrow. We're doing the best we can. And of course the drivers started early and worked late and they blended and some routes together will be caught up by Friday. And everybody should be caught up. We've had some struggle with some schools that's not wanting to recycle. I think we've
That straightened up?
Yes, sir. It took talking to the right person and explaining in detail that, and here's the explanation. You have the new schools, and they, elementary school, we had 2 containers. They should have had 3. We don't provide those. The school buys their own. So I told you, you have 1 container for trash, 1 for recycle. We'll dump both of them 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, should get you through. Well, they're still trying to get caught up. So they keep trashing the recycle, so we quit dumping it and put them in a bag. That way they'll talk then, and explained it to them. So Friday we dumped both of them. We got them started back this week on the right schedule with 1 container at each. At 40 kids generate 1 cubic yard of trash a week. They've got 990 students, I think, so that should be 24.75 cubic yards. An 8 yard going 3 times a week is 24. So if they'll recycle really well, they can make it on that. If they need another container, they're going to wind up with 8 yards of service more than they should have, but they will use every bit of it. So our effort is to limit the amount of service and cause them to have to recycle. Mayor Burgess used to say you can't make them. No, you can't make them, but you can cause them to have to. And that's where we're going with it. The new schools have understood it. Some of the older schools have struggled with it a little bit, but we've got their attention and we're going to get there.
It's a partnership.
It is a partnership, and a lot of it is
Just
understanding.
education.
Yes, sir.
Kind of an oxymoron at school.
Yeah.
But everybody has to be educated how to do it right properly.
Yes, sir.
But you only have to tell them once, they get it right.
Commissioner Cush has asked us to talk about a second meeting per month for Public Works, one devoted to trash. I hope y'all been in part of that conversation. To get everybody together for a second meeting may be a struggle, but gentlemen, we're going to have to talk about our solutions for the future. And my suggestion to him and Commissioner Piercy was that second meeting needs to be geared toward making a decision. The first decision may be, we're going to meet again this day and this time. But we're going to have to get with the mayor and all the other people that need to be a part of it. And if we're going to have a group governance of some kind, let's get that together, figure out what it is, going to move forward. We're going to keep on sitting and not making decisions until we're going to struggle. You know, so we need to figure out what we want to do and make some decisions to plan for that. City of Murfreesboro is already planning on a transfer station and would like for us to be partners with it. That's a discussion we need to have. You know, and who else are going to be our partners or who's not going to be our partners. I said, we've got a long, Joey Smith and I have traveled this road for 9 years. We've made a lot of turns and bumps and bruises and everything else, but we're ready to get off the dirt road and get on the interstate. Let's go. Let's make some decisions.
Any waste authority conversation taking place with the city, or is that?
I don't have the authority to make any
No, you
conversation.
don't, no. I mean, but theoretically, is that been continued to be one of the avenues, a waste authority?
If you remember, Darren Gore came and did a presentation about that, and then as far as I know, there's not been any discussion since then.
We had a mayor's meeting and there was talk about governance, thinking that the governance would have to be the first step. And what participation, we haven't got back together since that meeting. You know, how would Eagleville, would they have one representative and Murfreesboro have 3 representatives based on population? How would you set up that solid waste authority if we talked in that direction? The main thing at that meeting was just to get buy-in, and I think there's buy-in from the respective cities, the 4 cities that we have between Murfreesboro, Smyrna, Laverne, and Eagleville. There's buy-in that we all know as a county we're going to have to participate in whatever direction. Now I think it comes back to Public Works. The submissions were given to the mayor's office of those who wanted to be on that committee. Mr. Chairman, Vice Chairman, did Commissioner Cush give you that list?
No, sir. I haven't seen it or heard it.
Okay. Okay, so I guess we'll continue that next month.
Since you mentioned the mayor's meeting now, were you talking about the mayor of Eagle, Smyrna,
That's
Laverne,
correct,
and
yes.
yourself in the city?
Yes, sir.
What if Rutherford, you, and the Murfreesboro mayor went together? What would the other 3 do with their trash?
Well, the other 3, they do not have any type of sanitation department.
Right.
They depend on outside contractors, basically. Am I correct? Murfreesboro, they have their own sanitation department, but they are looking for other ways to save money as well. And of course, we have our convenience centers.
State law in Tennessee says that if the municipality chooses not to handle solid waste, then it directly falls to the county.
Just like education.
Yes. So the city of Murfreesboro actually does the curbside collection. Smyrna, Laverne, Eagleville technically don't do anything with it. It falls to the county, but they do allow for the private industries to come in and pick that up. So, you know, to say that we're handling all the trash in the county is nowhere close to the correct statement. We're not.
So inside the city limits of these cities, is it mandatory that we handle their trash?
we have to provide a trash location just like we do the county. We don't have to pick it up at the curb.
Inside their city limits.
Right. We don't have to have one inside the city limits. We have to have a location. The term convenience center is a technical term. It's meant to mean it's more convenient to go there than it would be all the way to the landfill. So, and all of ours meet that for the most part.
Somewhat cheaper too.
Yeah. But, you know, we have the largest center we have is in Smyrna, and it's arguably the busiest one in the state of Tennessee. The next busiest center is in Laverne, and then Rock Crusher on the south side of Murfreesboro and Almaville are pretty much tied for third. But I haven't ran the numbers in a while, but if you take Laverne, Smyrna, and Almaville, which is the north side of 840, it's 51% of what this department does in those three centers.
But we're not responsible for any commercial trash inside their city limits.
No.
Nothing.
We're not
It's
responsible
all
for anyone in the
private
county either.
So we're just residential.
We're not responsible for anything. The only thing close to commercial that the counties are responsible for is the used tires. Everything else in the industry side of it is their own. I don't know why we wind up with tires, but.
At your meeting, did you get good feedback from the other mayors?
Yeah, I think they're all willing at this point, and that's the main thing is to sit down around the table and figure out what our next step is. But just sitting around and waiting on it, somebody's got to make a proposal and say this is the direction we need to go, and let them say yes or no. You know, whether they're willing to participate in that or not, we haven't got that far. So I think this is a good first step of this committee meeting to determine that.
Do you think we need a governing body separate from this committee and the city council to make decisions for our county's trash?
Well, as you saw, if you went on that trip to Sevierville,
No, I didn't get to go.
yeah, they had, that's right, on weekend, wasn't it? Whenever we went, but I know you had to work and go. But anyway, Sevierville had one representative from each one of the entities up there. They liked it, and it's been going since 1992. They liked the Solid Waste Authority that was made up of I think they had maybe 2 private sector people and 1 representative from Sevierville, Pigeon Forge, et cetera, in that structure. It took a lot of heat off of the governing bodies because they could just lay it at the feet of the Solid Waste Authority. You know, if something happened, trash didn't get picked up, et cetera. So that's one scenario to look at. I'm not advocating that we go in that direction, but do you want to be dealing with these type of processes in the future? But we need to be doing something, as Mac was saying. We can't keep kicking the can further down the road. We've been doing it since 1990, and it's time that Rutherford County chooses a direction of how we're going to handle our solid waste.
No, it's time to put the can in the trash can and let's go with it.
Yeah,
Let's
exactly.
go. We've looked at a lot of different options,
Sure.
and I would really, of course, there may not be one we can go see. I'd say these fellas could tell us where to go tonight and look at one. But I think we need to go look at a transfer station and get an idea of what it is and what it will cost to build it.
Well, I think from a transfer station, you can look at several different. I've already looked at one transfer station just right down the road in Coffee County. Okay, transfer station like they have in Coffee County is much different than the transfer station that the city of Murfreesboro wants. The city of Murfreesboro, because they have their own sanitation department, they want it because they're going door to door on every street in the city and picking up trash. They want those guys to take it to one location so they can pick it up and take it to the landfill, so they get their trucks back out picking up more trash, okay? Another transfer station scenario, different definition, is in Coffee County. They have several counties in Warren County and in Coffee County bringing trash there. They take it in, put it on a dump it on the floor. They've got a big knuckle boom. They pick it up, turn it around. They've got a semi open top. They take that trash, dump it in the top of that, and they take off that semi and they take it across Mount Eagle Mountain, through Chattanooga and up to Cleveland, and they're dumping it there. Those are two different type of transfer stations you can look at. If you want to go look at theirs, you can go to to Coffee County, right off the interstate, right behind the jail, if you want to look at that. But I'll probably be coming to this committee and probably either at the end of October or November and making, at least from the mayor's position, a recommendation on which way to go. I'm still looking at we've about run the gamut.
I'd say so.
Yes, sir.
So you want us to wait on your recommendation before we make
don't,
any
no,
moves?
sir.
You
No.
don't want us to wait?
You can keep rolling. We need to be looking at all ideas, but I'm formulating my recommendation at this point.
Do y'all not have a transfer station in Nashville?
Yep.
Handles all Metro's trash?
Joy, willing to go visit anytime you need. We can set that up.
Okay. Would probably work for our trash, that size
Yep.
operation.
The second meeting, is that something we're gonna wait and talk about when we have more than just barely a quorum?
It would probably be best to wait till our new members come on board and let them be in on it since they're
Yeah,
gonna
the
sit
steering
here
committee,
for a year.
steering will meet tomorrow night and make the recommendation to the full commission, which will meet next week. So all the new committees will be set next week. Based on their recommendation, each member put 1, 2, 3, and 4 of their choices. So steering will make the recommendation tomorrow night to the full commission a week from Thursday.
Any more questions for Mr. Nolan?
Motion to approve his report if it hasn't been done
It
yet.
hasn't.
May I make that
You
motion?
may.
Second.
Motion is second. Everybody in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passed. Anything else, Mr. Nolan?
Not that I can think of.
Mr. Mayor, do you have anything else to add?
No, sir. Steering's tomorrow night and budget is Thursday night.
Well, I do. Mayor, we have on here this regional bus service contract. Is that what we handled last month? It's
Yes.
We
that's-
renewed
number
something.
3 on the agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Move to adjourn.
Good job, Chairman.
Thank you.
Yeah.